Hey readers, happy Friday. Today we're going to read this story. It's called Aunt Flossie's Hats and Crab Cakes Later. Take a look at the cover. The author of this book is Elizabeth Fitzgerald Howard, and the paintings are by James Ransom. Take a look at the cover. What do you think might happen in this story? What does it look like the girls are doing in this story? It's probably going to be about hats, right? That's part of the title. And if you look at the girls, it looks like they're trying on hats, and it looks like in their faces they're having a fun time. And their aunt is sitting in the chair. Let's read to find out more about Aunt Flossie and her hats. When we're finished reading, you will have 1 or 2 questions about the book, and then you're going to apply the Retell strategy we focused on this entire week. And you're going to apply that strategy to your independent reading book. So when we're finished reading this, we're going to look at what happened in the beginning, what happened in the middle, and what happened at the end. Aunt Flossie's Hats and Crab Cakes Later. On Sunday afternoons, Sarah and I go to see great Aunt Flossie. Sarah and I love Aunt Flossie's house. It is crowded full of stuff and things, books and pictures and lamps and pillows, plates and trays and old dried flowers and boxes and boxes and boxes of hats. On Sunday afternoons, when Sarah and I go to see Aunt Flossie, she says, "Come in, Susan. Come in, Sarah. Have some tea. Have some cookies. Later, we can get some crab cakes." We sip our tea and eat our cookies, and then Aunt Flossie lets us look in her hat boxes. We pick out hats and try them on. Aunt Flossie says they are her memories, and each hat has a story. How could a hat have a story? Do you think a hat could talk? No. Do you think maybe she's thinking about times when she wore the hat and the experience she's had? You might have some toys, or you might have some a piece of clothing that when you wear it, you think about a memory. I know I have a dress that anytime I wear it, I think about this memory I have with my friend. Maybe you have something like that. Hats, 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 hats. A stiff black one with bright red ribbons. A soft brown one with silver buttons. Thin floppy hats that hide our eyes. Green or blue or pink or purple. Some have fur and some have feathers. Look, this hat is just one smooth, soft rose. But here's one with 1,000,000,000,000 flowers. Aunt Flossie has so many hats. One Sunday afternoon, I picked out a woolly winter hat. Sort of green, maybe. Aunt Flossie thought a minute. Aunt Flossie almost always thinks a minute before she starts a hat story. Then she sniffed the woolly hat. "Just a little smoky smell now," she said. Sarah and I sniffed the hat too. "Smoky smell, Aunt Flossie?" "The big fire," Aunt Flossie said. "The big fire in Baltimore. Everything smelled of smoke for miles around, for days and days. Big fire. Didn't come near our house on Center Street, but we could hear the engines racing down St. Paul. Horses' hooves clattering. Bells. Whistles. Your great-grandma and I couldn't sleep. We grabbed our coats and hats and ran outside. Worried about Uncle Jimmy's grocery store. Worried about the terrapins and crabs. Big fire in Baltimore." If you look at the illustration, you can tell some people are worried and other people are in a hurry. How does the author help us know it happened a long time ago? If you look, what are they riding on in the streets? What do they have? Horses, right? Do we have horses driving down the streets now? No, not usually. A terrapin is a type of a turtle. Why do you think Aunt Flossie and her mom were worried about the terrapins, or the turtles, and the crabs? What do you think they thought would happen to them with a fire? What could happen to them with the fire? Could maybe get hurt? Aunt Flossie closed her eyes. I think she was seeing long ago. I wondered about crab cakes. Did they have crab cakes way back then? Then Sarah sniffed Aunt Flossie's hat. No more smoky smell, she said. But I thought I could smell some, just a little. Then Sarah tried a different hat, dark, dark blue with a red feather. This one, Aunt Flossie, this one! Aunt Flossie closed her eyes and thought a minute. Oh my, yes, my, what an exciting day! We waited, Sarah and I. What happened, Aunt Flossie? I asked. Big parade in Baltimore. Ooh, parade, said Sarah. We love parades. I made that hat, Aunt Flossie said. To wear to watch that big parade. Buglers bugling, drummers drumming, flags flying everywhere. The boys, soldiers, you know, back from France. Marching up Charles Street, proud, everyone cheering, everyone shouting, the Great War was over, the Great War was over. How do you think Aunt Flossie feels when she thinks about a memory? What feelings do you think she feels? Do you think maybe she feels sad or happy? Do you think she feels anything else? Let's have a parade, I said. Sarah put on the dark blue hat. I found a red one with a furry pom-pom. We marched around Aunt Flossie's house. March with us, Aunt Flossie, I called. But she was closing her eyes. She was seeing long ago. Maybe she's dreaming about crab cakes, Sarah said. Then we looked in the very special box. Look, Aunt Flossie, here's your special hat. It was the big straw hat with the pink and yellow flowers and green velvet ribbon. Aunt Flossie's favorite, best Sunday hat. It's our favorite story because we are in the story and we can help Aunt Flossie tell it. Aunt Flossie smiled. One Sunday afternoon, she said, we were going out for crab cakes, Sarah and Susan. And Mommy and Daddy, I said. And Aunt Flossie, said Sarah. Aunt Flossie nodded. We were walking by the water, and the wind came. What do you think might happen next? Let's see if you're right. Let me tell it, I said. The wind came and blew away your favorite best Sunday hat. My favorite best Sunday hat, said Aunt Flossie. It landed in the water. It was funny, said Sarah. I didn't think so, said Aunt Flossie. And Daddy tried to reach it, I said. But he slid down in the mud. Daddy looked really surprised and everybody laughed. He couldn't rescue my favorite best Sunday hat, said Aunt Flossie. And Mommy got a stick and leaned far out. She almost fell in, but she couldn't reach it either. The water rippled and your favorite best Sunday hat just floated by like a boat. Were you predicting this? Did you think this might happen? I wonder what'll happen next. Now comes the best part, and I'll tell it, said Sarah. A big brown dog came. It was walking with a boy. May we help you? The boy asked. My dog Gretchen can get it. The boy threw a small stone. It landed in Aunt Flossie's hat. Fetch, Gretchen, fetch! Fetch, Gretchen, fetch! Gretchen jumped into the water and she swam. She swam and she got it. Gretchen got Aunt Flossie's hat. Hooray for Gretchen! We all jumped up and down. Hooray for Aunt Flossie's hat. It was very wet, said Aunt Flossie, but it dried just fine, almost like new. My favorite best Sunday hat. Why do you think this story is the girls' favorite? Why do you think they like this story the most? Do you think it's because they're in the story? Maybe. I know I always like it when my family tells stories and I'm a part of the story. Maybe you do too. I like that story, I said. So do I, said Sarah. And I like what happened next. We went to get crab cakes. Crab cakes, said Aunt Flossie. What a wonderful idea. Sarah, Susan, telephone your parents. We'll go get some crab cakes right now. Crab cakes are so good. Have you ever had them? They're pretty good. I think Sarah and I will always agree about one thing. Nothing in the whole wide world tastes as good as crab cakes. But crab cakes taste best after stories about Aunt Flossie's hats. And that's the end of the story. Okay, so you are going to answer a couple of questions about the book on Seesaw, and then you are going to read your own independent reading book that you're going to find on Raz Kids, and you're going to retell the story using the beginning, middle, and strategy. So, just a reminder, when we do that, we use the pictures and we use the book to help us. So, if I'm talking about what happened in the beginning, would I go to the front of the book or the back of the book? If it's the beginning. The front, of course. Yes, the front. So, I'm going to open it up. And at the beginning, Sarah and Susan, they go to Aunt Flossie's house, and they knock on the door, and then they're having tea and cookies, right? So Sarah and Susan go to Aunt Flossie's for tea and cookies. That's what happens at the beginning. So in the beginning, Sarah, and sometimes second graders, I read things and then I forget, so I have to look again. Susan. Sarah and Susan go to Aunt Flossie's house for tea and cookies. That makes me smile because today for morning meeting, or yesterday I guess by the time you watch this, we talked about our favorite kind of cookies. So at the beginning, Sarah and Susan, they went to Aunt Flossie's house for tea and cookies. What happens in the middle? What do they start to do in the middle of the story? They start to try on hats, don't they? They try on hats, and they're not just trying on hats, they're listening to Aunt Flossie's stories. So I'm going to say in the middle, they try on hats. They try on Aunt Flossie's hats. Because they're not anybody's hats, they're their aunt's hats. They try on Aunt Flossie's hats. She tells them, I'm going to say that differently. She shares memories about the hats. She shares memories about the hats. Now, I could be more specific and I could give an example or two about some of the memories, but since this is a retell, I don't have to do that. I'm just kind of telling the big things that happen. So she's telling all sorts of memories, right? She tells the story about the war being over. She tells the story about the fire. And then at the end they tell that story together about the favorite hat. And the girls are in the story, and then they get crab cakes right at the end, right? So at the end, they tell their favorite story together. And then where do they go? What do they eat? Crab cakes. They eat crab cakes. Now, if you don't know what a crab cake is, that's okay. When I was in second grade, I did not know what a crab cake was. Crab cakes are delicious. They have crab in them, and they have seasonings in them, and usually breadcrumbs, and it's sort of like a patty. So if you imagine like a burger, they're sort of like a patty, and sometimes you can dip them in sauces, but they're made out of basically crab, and they're really, really, really good. So at the end of the story, they go and they eat crab cakes, right? And when we do our retell, it should make sense. So I'm just going to read this all in order, and we just want to make sure it makes sense, okay? In the beginning, Sarah and Susan go to Aunt Flossie's house for tea and cookies. Does that make sense? Yeah. In the middle, they try on Aunt Flossie's hats. She shares memories about the hats. At the end, they tell their favorite story together. Then they eat crab cakes. All right, that, second graders, is a retell. Please make sure you do a retell for your independent reading book today. Happy reading!